Narset Enlightened Exile is supposed to be from Mongolia. Or Tarkir, I guess. Genghis Khan, I don't know. But I know that this lady's looking fly and lovely in her blue and white ensemble, backed up by white and pink matching energy swirls. Narset. The name strikes fear into commander players. One of her planeswalker iterations can destroy your ability to draw cards and leave you handless after a windfall. And Narset Enlightened Master used to have a whole archetype named after her, prior to the absolute explosion of legends in recent years. Narset Turns was a feared deck, mostly because it was immensely boring to play against. Now this time around we get a really powerful and interesting legend coming out of the aftermath. From a creature she arose, and from a creature she shall be. I'm going to break down this commander, the rules, corner cases, and cards you should consider, all revolving around an $80 budget deck I slapped together, not including the commander, because it's like $30 in pre-sale season right now. I also have a little discussion about budget and power at the end of the video. And if you're sick of the YouTube channels run by lizard people, globalists, and false flag operatives, give old Nikki G a like and subscribe. I'll fight for you, like Garl Vinland fought for Maiden Australia. Alright, check this card out, man. We got Narset Enlightened Exile. 1 blue, red, and a white for a legendary creature, human monk. It's a 3/4. Creatures you control have prowess. When Narset Enlightened Exile attacks, exile target non-creature, non-land card with mana value less than Narset's power from a graveyard and copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Alright, so first things first. Prowess triggers off non-creature spells, so enchantments, artifacts, as well as planeswalkers and instants and sorceries. Secondly, each instance of prowess triggers independently. It's like Cascade or Exalted. If a creature already has prowess, they get another instance of it if our commander's on the battlefield. Third, it says creatures you control, not other creatures you control, so she gets prowess as well because she's a creature and I control her, Buster Brown. And fourth, she can hit any graveyard, doesn't have to be yours. If Narset sees a nice Rampant Growth and Samson Funnelfinger's graveyard over there, you can just get that if you want. And fifth and lastly, the non-creature non-land card you are exiling and copying is cast. So if you're packing any cast triggers, say Prowess for example, right, or Magecraft, then they're going to trigger that as well. Jeskai, man, there's a bunch of similar Jeskai commanders that have similar text or do similar things, or want to do similar things. I'm going to talk about a few of them. In any case, the cards that are good in those decks may be good in this deck, so you may want to check out their EDH rec pages for inspiration. I like Jeskai decks. I like Kanata Dawn Crowned. I have a Wheels deck with Shabraz and Bralin Wheel partners. Jeskai has little access to land ramp but has all kinds of instant and sorcery payoffs. It still feels like it did back in the old days of Commander, with the color combination having clear advantages and synergies but having an attendant drawback. Yeah man, take a look at Shu Yun, the Silent Tempest. 2 and a blue for a legendary creature, human monk. It's a 3/2 with prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may pay a hybrid Boros and a hybrid Boros. If you do, target creature gains double strike until end of turn. And some of the cards that are good in Feathered the Redeemed will also be good in Narset Enlightened Exile. There are a bunch of Jeskai legends that can do similar things, like Kanata Dawn Crowned, Kaikar, Elsha the Infinite. Look at Elsha out there doing the Macarena. You got Spellslinger, Spellstorm archetype. So what makes this commander unique? Well, the fact that it wants a relatively wide board to get multiple prowess triggers is pretty interesting, and it plays well with the graveyard. Any graveyard, so mill shenanigans and wheels are going to be great. Cards that make creature tokens on casts of instant and sorceries are also fantastic. Take for example the old Monastery Mentor, 2 and a white for a creature, human monk. It's a 2/2 with prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess. This guy just got a reprint and definitely goes in this deck because he's given it all his little guys prowess. And Narset's also giving him prowess. They got double prowess, dude. They're going to kick you right in the nits. Then you got our old buddy Talran. Talran just goes in every deck. Don't worry about it. Just stick him in there. You got Young Pyromancer. You got Third Path Iconoclast. There are also various Jeskai staples like Jeskai Ascendancy and Whirlwind of Thought that can get us card advantage. Jeskai Ascendancy is particularly good because it feeds our graveyard, beefs up our creatures, and gives a kind of pseudo-vigilance trigger that will trigger off our commander. I have 18 or so card advantage cards like this in the deck. You also want cards like Fact or Fiction and Frantic Search, so these are great for feeding the graveyard and selecting the cards that we're going to be putting in the graveyard to recast with our commander. There's also a bunch of little cheap little funky little combat tricks that draws cards and make our commander hard to block. So we don't want her getting blocked out there, chump blocked, or we don't want her getting blocked and then taken down, dude. We want Shadow Rift, Leap, Slip Through Space. These are going to trigger prowess on cast and draw us into our next spell. So you're casting a bunch of spells, you're putting a bunch of things in the graveyard, and after a long, hard-fought initial 6 turns of using our removal and controlling the board and casting free stuff from the yard, a beefed-up Mizzix Mastery can help close out a game. You're going to be getting a billion triggers and doing all kinds of stuff, dude. So you also want loads of protection. The last game I played, I got no less than 4 pieces of removal thrown at it. So you want cards like Winged Boots, Swiftfoot Boots. These are going to go great with Narset's Fashion, dude, and they're non-creature spells. Then you got March of Swirling Mist and Change of Plans. Nobody ever sees phasing coming, dude. Phasing is such a good mechanic. March of Swirling Mist can be used defensively to phase out an Alpha Strike. Say you got a bunch of creatures coming at you, dude, you just phase them out till the end of turn and crack back. So in a deck like this that we want to kind of be controlling the board in the beginning of the game, you want lots of pieces of interaction. So in this deck I have 18 pieces of interaction. You got Pongify, you got Rapid Hybridization, Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile. These are all relatively cheap cards that we can use to help control the board and not get banged into bang bang all the time, dude. These smaller interaction pieces are great to cast again using our commander's ability as well. You also want to include some wheels that can feed your graveyard. Yeah, Windfall, Wheel of Misfortune. Wheel of Misfortune is always a pain to resolve, but my play group has gotten pretty much used to it and knows what to do with it. These cards are important because you're going to be casting very cheap spells early in the game and filling up your graveyard. So then later on, what do? Just sit there with no hand, dude? No, you're going to cast Windfall, you're going to screw up everybody else's hand and benefit off of them drawing cards all dang game. Overall, very fun deck, lots of interaction, and can be juiced up to compete in very spicy metas. Your command is going to be a magnet for removal, so you need to pack lots of counter magic, lots of protection. I played with the $80 version and it did really well. It had some serious effect on the game, but the commander was hated out pretty much from the beginning. Even so, I was down to 12 cards in my deck and no one was even playing mill. I was drawing a lot of cards, there was a lot of interaction. In the same game, I encountered optimized decks, Vampiric, Grim Tutors, all kinds of expensive cards, Smothering Tide. I made the point that this was a budget deck, but it did well for its first outing and was pretty easy to build on a budget. So we had this discussion about power not necessarily equaling budget. They were like, oh, Nicky G, you build these super strong decks and they're on a budget. You know, we have to kind of use these commander staples, expensive cards to keep up. It's interesting. My thoughts on that are that you can create a balanced and powerful deck on a budget, but it gets better when you optimize the mana base and upgrade the cards to the more powerful or more efficient versions. I mean, listen, CEDH decks don't cost $50. They're upwards of $5,000. You replace Negate with Fierce Guardianship, you know, stuff like that. That makes the deck better, but it's scalable based on the deck, the commander, and the degree of synergy that you have. It's an interesting discussion to have. I'm limiting myself to budget decks lately, and I feel the challenge of building a coherent, synergistic deck on a budget. I think it's easier to stick to staples, you know what I mean? You just go to the EDH rec page and see the most expensive cards, stick them in there. I would love a Jeska's Will on this deck, but it was outside the budget. Oh well, we'll pick from the other 25,000 cards, and next time Jeska's Will gets reprinted, we'll just buy one. Is Swan Song better than Counterspell? Could I just stick in Esper Sentinel, Dockside Extortionist, and Smothering Tide? Sure, and they would likely make the deck more powerful incrementally, even more so if you upgraded large swaths of the deck, even though they don't specifically synergize with this deck in particular. When you start getting then, is this generically powerful deck with no character. Now when I build one of these decks, what I like to do is just give a framework, you know what I mean? Maybe put some cards out there that maybe aren't setting the world on fire but are good fits in the deck. That's interesting to me. The restriction enhances the creativity aspect that I enjoy more than anything else. You don't want all your decks kind of looking the same and just being generically powerful for what they are. You don't want to win with a strategy that's outside your wheelhouse just because it's an immensely powerful strategy. You want things to synergize with your commander. Take for example Angel Fire Ignition. It's 1 red and a white for a sorcery. Put 2/1/1 counters on target creature. It gains Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink, Indestructible, and Haste until end of turn. Also has flashback for 2 red and a white. This card is fantastic with our commander. I mean, look at this guy out there. He's riding a duck, dude. He's got flaming wings. This thing just got set on fire and it's about to bash into your opponents. But this is going to help protect our commander, make her bigger, and also give her these great keywords, dude. Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink, Indestructible, and Haste. This is great. Sometimes you have to slap out your commander from the command zone and it's coming out there swinging, you're getting extra value. Now you probably never heard of this card, and it's 35 cents. So it fits from a budget perspective, and you get to be a hipster and impress your friends with a card that's supremely synergistic with our commander and pretty cool. So final thoughts here, I don't think budget necessarily equals power. but I think if you scale up the budget, you incrementally, slowly scale up the power, especially if you're upgrading the mana base where things are going to run super smooth with fetch lands and shock lands and stuff like that. So, final thoughts on this commander. Very fun commander. Lots of interaction, lots of instant speed shenanigans. It always seemed like I was out of the game, and then it's just like, oh, Nick's not out of the game. I can definitely recommend checking it out and building around this commander. Check out the deck list and have fun out there, brothers. Protect yourself from all the pitfalls and dangers of the Commander universe. This is Nicky G from Better Commander, signing off.